Hey guys, welcome to a new video. My name is Diego, and today what we'll be talking about is the difference between correlation, causation. We're going to talk about attribution as well, and how they relate to Facebook tests that you can run, right? Like A/B testing, conversion lifts, brand lifts, because it's confusing and it's confusing to understand the difference between each. You're going to get a ton of questions, especially for the 200 level exam. It's all about, you need to know basic statistics, but you really need to grasp the difference between these two concepts and also running these two different exams. The planning and buying questions might get some questions more general, but I think it's topics that it's good to know and understand the difference between all of them, right? And so what we're going to talk about today is understand attribution, understand causation and correlation, and how they're different and why they're different, and why it's important to know um, that they're not the same, and how they relate also to Facebook A/B testing and to Facebook conversion lifts. We're going to talk about incrementality and just a bit summary where I have a little table where it compares one versus the other so that it's easier to understand. And so the first thing to know is attribution, right? And I think we all know this, and this is just a refresh, but it's key to know that Facebook attribution is basically you're telling Facebook, or you're determining how to credit your campaigns, right? So if someone went to your site and made a purchase, and throughout the past 30 days they saw campaigns, they click on your campaigns, they engage with your campaigns as well, um, where how do you attribute that conversion, right? So was your the campaign that the person saw the one that actually generated the sale, or was it just the click, right? Or was the engagement the one that generated the sale? And so attribution, and there's various attribution models, but attribution, it basically allows you to determine where you credit, or what campaign was responsible for helping you make that conversion, right? Whether it's a purchase, whether it's increasing your brand, whether it's because people clicked it or just saw it. Attribution window, which is the second thing, is how long are you allowing Facebook algorithm to go back and see whether an ad that was launched 7 days ago or 30 days ago was the one that actually helped you convert that user. And the other thing that's key is that, because you might get questions on this in the exam, is that Facebook is a data-driven attribution model, which what that means is basically it's based on historical data. There's different types of attribution models and ways in which you can attribute campaigns. But what in a nutshell, what this does is Facebook goes back into your data, or into your campaigns data, and that's how they determine attribution. And so one of the key things with attribution is that attribution tells me, if it helped make a purchase, but not if it cost it, right? And this is key. Like I can say, like, well, this campaign, people saw this ad, so I can, in theory, say that they made a purchase, but that's not necessarily true. So you can attribute a conversion, like a purchase on your e-commerce site, to an ad, but it doesn't mean that it caused it, right? Think about, if you're really thinking about buying shoes, you go to the website, you don't make the purchase, they keep retargeting you, you click on the ad, you finally make the purchase. Did you really make the purchase because you saw the ad, or was it just because you were gonna buy your shoes anyways? And so it had nothing to do with the campaign, and you're wrongly attributing a campaign result with that specific campaign where it had nothing to do with it, right? And so this is where I think it's important to understand correlation and causation and different tests that you can run through Facebook platform, to really determine whether your campaigns are being effective or not, right? Are they causing conversions? Are they, if I launch campaign A, is it really making people buy, or increasing the purchases on my website, or increasing the brand awareness that I'm looking for within that user base? And so the first thing that we're going to look at is correlation, right? And so again, think of the scenario where you're launching the campaign. We always ask these questions, right? Did it increase my sales? Did it increase my brand lift? So are people recognizing my brand more because I launched that? Was it worth it? Like, should I keep investing money in these campaigns? And by how much? Like, did it increase sales 20%? Can I really say that the 20% increase this month was related to the campaigns I launched a month ago, 2 months ago. And so because I'm launching campaigns, I'm increasing sales. So we're always wondering whether is it worth investing money in the campaigns, right? And not just small businesses, but huge enterprises do this as well. And this is why Facebook came up with a bunch of different tests that you can run to really determine whether your campaigns are being effective. And I think you have to split here into two aspects of a campaign, right? One is correlation and causation. We're going to talk about those two because they're not the same and we tend to confuse both. And so when we talk about correlation, what you're really seeing is there a relationship between two or more variables, right? But this doesn't tell you whether it caused it, right? There's a cause and effect. It can mean that they're related, but it doesn't mean that there's a cause and effect. If you think of a basic example that might not be in marketing, but let's say, this whole thing of statistically, fires that where you have more firemen that go into a fire, the damage is higher, right? So can you say that because more firemen, then the damage in the building or wherever they go is bigger? So can we really say, well, then let's send less firemen, because if you send less people, then there's going to be less damage into the building or wherever they're going? No. I mean, the reason the damage is bigger is because the fire that they're trying to put out is bigger. So you need more people to put that fire out, right? So there's no cost and effect of saying the number of firemen that go with the damages in the building. It's just you have a bigger fire, so you need more people to go out and put out the fire, right? And this is the same thing here, right? So did my campaign really generated results? And so the thing with correlation is that there's a relationship with the variables, but there's no causation, right? And this is key to understand. Usually when we talk about correlation, you go from -1 to 1. And so if you look at this graph, you can really say, well, you have variable A and variable B, which could be, well, let's say CPC and results, or it could be CPC and engagement. So the higher my engagement, the higher my the lower the cost of my CPC. So the more people click on my campaign, the less of the CPC, or the cost per click, that I'm gonna have. So you could say, well, there's a linear, correlation between CPC and also engagement. And you can do this with any two variables that you can think of, right? What's key here is to understand that you have a correlation of -1 to 1. And so you can have a strong correlation, right? So if you look at correlation strength, so this is a strong correlation. If you look, it's just linear, it goes up. But it could also be weak, or there could be no correlation, right? It could also be the other way, like it doesn't necessarily have to go up, it could go down. So I could have positive correlation, I could have negative correlation, I could have no correlation at all, a linear correlation, so just like the line you see here, exponential, so it goes like this, and U-shaped correlation. And so that's really a summary of the types of, there's more obviously, but what you really need to know for the exam is, one, is there a positive or negative correlation, or is there a correlation at all? Like how strong is the correlation between the two variables? And the way you address or measure the strength is by how close to 1 or -1 things are, right? A positive correlation would have 1. So 1 is basically, it's 100, there's 100% correlation. -1, it also tells you that there's 100% correlation, but in the other way, like negative, right? And so one of the things that you have to think about is, one, is it positive, is it negative, and is it strong or not? And so a weak correlation, or no correlation at all, will be 0. If you have something that has 0 correlation, then what you're saying is that it's, if you plot the data, you're gonna see it like this. It's gonna be scattered all over the place because there's no correlation between the two variables, right? And so again, key to understand here is you're talking about relationship. So can I relate variable A with variable B? Can I say that there's a relationship in that there's movement when one goes up, the other one goes up as well, or the other one goes down? But I can't say that one is causing the other, right? And this is key with correlation. Where do we use correlation? Usually in A/B testing. And so why do we do A/B testing? Because we're really trying to determine whether different variables outperform others, right? So if I change an audience or if I change a creative, like should I use an image versus a video, which one performs the best? And so one of the big things that you want to understand or see here is usually with A/B testing, I'm not necessarily doing causation, right? I'm not doing cause and effect, but what I'm doing is correlating things. So can I determine whether a change in an audience or a placement, right? So if I launch campaigns in Facebook versus Instagram, do I have better results within the campaign? Like, can I increase my click-through rate, or can I decrease my CPC, cost per click, right? But I'm not talking about causation. I'm not talking about conversions. One of the things that's key here is that usually when you're talking about A/B testing, is that you're launching ads to different groups, like both groups see the ad, and therefore you can't really say whether by looking at one ad or the other people bought or not, because what you really, in order for you to really say that, you need people, one group to see the ad and the other group to not see any campaigns, to really determine whether your campaigns cause the conversion, right? So big thing here is with A/B testing, I'm looking for correlation, right? If I change something, can my campaign perform better? Are there different variables that correlate that I can increase the performance? And so one of the things here is, in key, you only want to test one thing, right? So I only want to change test group 1 versus test group 2. I don't want to do many changes. I want to change one variable at a time that I'm testing throughout my process. And so there's different ways in which you can launch A/B testing. I can just duplicate an ad campaign. I can launch an A/B test. So if you look at your campaigns here, it'll usually say create an A/B test. What do you want to test? Creative, delivery, audience placement. And as I mentioned before, what you're looking for here is correlation, right? If I change something, can I improve the results? Causation is a little different. With causation, I actually really want to determine whether the changes in my campaigns or even just launching campaigns is having an effect on my sales or my business outcomes, right? It could be e-commerce sales. It could be increasing my brand awareness, anything that's related to your business outcomes. And so what causation is I'm really talking about cause and effect. So causation allows me to see which events or initiatives led me to a particular outcome, right? So with causation, what I'm really looking for is, are my campaigns allowing me to increase my sales? And this is one of the biggest difference with A/B testing. With lift campaigns, what you really have is a control group and a test group, right? And so your control group is going to be people that don't see the ad, and your test group is going to be people that do see your ads. This is the only way you can really tell whether your campaigns are having an effect, like are causing your sales or your brand awareness to increase, right? So I'm measuring actions. I'm measuring campaign purchases. People are answering questions about your brand. So with causation, I can really say, is this worth it? By how much is it increasing? I can answer those questions, right? With correlation, the only thing I can say is, how do I change strategies or tactics, right? Do I change an audience? Do I change a campaign creative? Do I change placement? With causation, what I'm really trying to understand is my lift, right? So understand how and where marketing is contributing to your business outcomes. And that's where lift is. And that's why whenever you see like conversion lift, brand lift, right? What I'm really trying to say is, am I increasing, am I getting better results? And the only way with my campaigns or my marketing efforts, and the only way to see that is by comparing a control group with a test group, right? So my test group is going to see the ads, my control group won't see anything. And that's the only way I can say whether things are working or not. And this is where incrementality comes into play. And what this really means is basically this is a measurement of your lift. And what lift is by how much did it increase? Was it, you know, if you have, and I found this image that I think it's a pretty good example on Nanigans, on what incrementality is and how lift campaigns or lift tests work, right? So this tells me I have two users, right? Michelle and Justine. They both visit the site, they both view products, they added carts and they left. So they went to the e-commerce site, they, went through products, they even added the product to the cart. But now I'm gonna do a lift test, right? So I want to test whether my remarketing efforts are really worth it or not. And so what they did is basically you said, well, I'm going to have a test group, which is going to be Michelle. She's going to be part of that test group. She's going to actually see ads. And so she's going to, after they leave and they add the product to the cart and they leave, I'm going to use dynamic ads to keep showing her ads, right? For a specific number of time. And Justine is going to be in my control group or my holdout group. So the holdout group is basically people who are not going to see those ads, right? In this case, because it's a remarketing campaign, she also went to your site, she also added products, but she's not going to see remarketing campaigns. So here I can really say and test whether the remarketing efforts are bringing better results. Why? Because I can say, well, the purchase rate for my remarketing or for my test group was 12%. With my control group, it was a 10%, right? So by remarketing, I'm increasing my conversions by 2%. So the incremental lift is 2%. So 2% of, if I have 100 people that that are in my test group, 2% will buy or are more likely to buy. And so here I can really say that my campaigns, one, are having an effect, and by how much. So I can really say there's a cause and effect, right? And this is a big difference between A/B testing and lift test. A/B testing, you're looking for correlation, you're looking for strategies, tactics that to change your campaigns. With conversion lift, brand lift, what I'm really trying to look for is incrementality. So, incrementality is the measure of the lift that advertising spend provides to the conversion rate. So am I increasing my sales? Same thing with brand lift. Brand lift, what it does is it'll put people in a control group and a test group. Some people will see ads, other people won't, and then I send a survey. And we'll see the results from that survey to see whether the ads build more brand awareness, right? Again, with lifts, you also want to be able to isolate one variable at a time, right? I want to be able to say whether one effort had a specific effect. Otherwise, it happens when you have the same example we had at the beginning where I don't really know what's causing one. So I want to be able to isolate one from the other. With Facebook lift test, what you have is conversion lift test, you have brand lift test, cross-publisher test experiments. I'm not going to go into detail for each. We'll do that in other videos. But what I'm looking here again with all these tests is causation. It's not correlation, it's causation. All lift tests are looking for causation. And so in summary, you can see here the difference between correlation and causation. The objective of correlation is really to see whether there's a relationship between two variables. With causation, I want to look for cause and effect. What do we use it for? Changes in strategies. Should I change creatives? Should I change placement, audiences? And this is more for day-to-day or month-to-month, right? I'm making changes constantly. With causation, what I really want to say is, what's the impact of my campaigns on my business outcomes and by how much? Are they really worth it? How much should I keep investing? And by how much are they increasing my sales, my brand lift, anything that I'm trying to measure, right? With correlation, I don't have a control group. What I'm having is I'm testing the ads on different, both users or both groups are looking at different ads. So because of that, I can't really or necessarily determine cause and effect, right? With causation, I have to have a control group. And I have to have people that see my ad and I have to have people that don't see my ad. That's the only way I can really determine causation with my campaigns. And type of test, again, with correlation, you're talking about A/B tests. With lift tests, you're talking about causation. And so this is a good summary that you should print and I wouldn't say memorize, but it's a good way to see the difference between both correlation, causation, A/B testing, and lift test within the Facebook platform. You're going to get a ton of questions, especially for the 200 level exam on this. And you need to be able to understand the basics of how these are different so that you can actually answer them the questions quicker and properly. The other thing is make sure that you join our Facebook Blueprint certification group. We have close to 14,000 members. We get a ton of questions here, get updates on the new exams, tips for studying as well if you're trying to prepare or even just become a better Facebook marketer. It's a good way to learn learn about what others are doing to prepare for the exams, and also make sure you take advantage of all of our content, right? So we're constantly putting blog posts on our blog. Get our free study guide that you can get for free, and also we have practice questions that you can use for the exams as well, so that you can test and see whether there's topics or subjects that you still might want to go over. It's a good way to see and better prepare for your exams. So again, thanks for listening today, guys. Make sure you follow us below as well. I always forget. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. We're constantly publishing videos to help you just prepare and study for your exams. So thanks again, and I'll see you next week.